the show. We are going to give our spoiler-free reviews of the episode, and then we are going to get into a full spoiler breakdown of the episode, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Nathan.
I'm Colin.
I'm David.
Hey, so the spoiler-free logline provided by Disney for this episode is Marc and Steven search through their memories to find their truth or become left behind. So, Colin, what did you think of this episode? Spoiler-free, of course.
Yeah, this episode was very intense. I know I missed the last 2 weeks of our live streams, but I have been keeping up with the episodes. But yeah, this was really, really intense in terms of the presentation, in terms of the acting, in terms of all the kind of like the story itself. I think that they really pushed the envelope in terms of their storytelling, as I mentioned before, kind of offline to you, Nathan. So, yeah, it was without getting to like a lot of spoilers as to what it was. It does really touch upon a lot of issues that are at times can be very taboo, and also at times can be very sensitive as well. So in that regard, I think that they really handled it very, very well and kind of presented it in a way where it was approachable but also very serious in tone. But I really did like the episode for that aspect of it, of them of Marvel kind of taking those risks. And we've heard from many times from Kevin Feige that he is willing to go push those envelopes right now because of the credibility that Marvel has built up over the past 10 years or so. But I didn't really expect it to be this intensive. But overall, I like the episode, but be warned that you might be you might get to revisit some things that may not be very pleasant.
Yeah. David, what do you think?
I agree with Colin that this is like a jam-packed revelation of a lot of things here, and it really shows that Marvel is really pushing the envelope, as Colin said, of the push more of the story, and we get to know more of the character himself. And one thing I can understand why it's so. Like we talk offline, either this is the greatest thing or the worst thing. But the thing is that this explains a lot of things from the past few episodes, because the one thing I was hoping they would do right on Moon Knight is that they would explain the character, especially for those who not familiar with Moon Knight, because in the comics, Moon Knight wasn't as big as the other names like Iron Man, Captain America, or Hulk. Well, this one is like out of nowhere kind of thing, kind of hero. So, and at least that just show his we get to see more of his backstory and get to learn more and appreciate more of the character as well. So, and I have to say that Oscar Isaac really killed the character in this episode. Yeah. So I really admire his range of how he did this episode. So I really admire that. So props to him.
Yeah. This episode wrecked me a bit. So I cried a lot during this episode. It was it was a very good episode, but also it was very difficult subject matter that they cover here. I didn't expect Marvel to go there, and now that they're owned by Disney, you definitely didn't expect them to go there. But they went there, and it was and they're willing to take risks and their storytelling now, which is great. That means that we get better storytelling and more impactful storytelling and more substantive storytelling. As David just said, Oscar Isaac is phenomenal. He needs to get an Emmy nomination for this show. I heard earlier today that the cutoff for Oscar nominations is about for this year's June, which is probably why they released it now. He definitely should be nominated. I've been reviewing some media for the promotion of this show, and I caught a interview with Oscar. I think he was on not Jimmy Kimmel's show. I think Meyer's show, and he mentioned to him that they sold him on this show. Mohamed Diab showed him on this show by sending him the first script for this first episode in this episode. So I can understand, given the script that he was sent, why he signed on to this show. Now, you don't know whether or not it's going to turn out well based upon just the script, because there's all kinds of things that go into making a production successful. But I'm glad that he took the risk on this, because it really highlights his acting ability, and this script is phenomenal. This is directed by Mohamed Diab, who is the showrunner of the show. He doesn't direct all the episodes, but he directed this one, and he's going to direct the next one. And he directed a couple of the ones at the beginning as well, the first one as well. This is written by Rebecca Kirsch and Matthew Orton. There are some. There always in the background there were some hints to Marc Spector's Jewish heritage but there's actual specific things in this episode that speak to that, which was also great to see. So yeah, that we get a lot about what makes Marc who he is, and I know there's people that are complaining that in this Moon Knight show we're not seeing a whole lot of Moon Knight, but like the most interesting thing about like Batman or Superman is not necessarily them saving the day, but also their internal struggles or whatever. So like actually understanding Marc, where he's coming from, how he got to the way he is very interesting stuff. And the origin stories or the stuff that they gave him here in this episode is some of the most compelling that I've seen in not just superhero stuff. It's just a very interesting backstory for any kind of character, even apart from being in a superhero show. So it was an exceptional episode. I'm almost afraid that they won't be able to stick the landing with the final episode, because they have a lot to wrap up in the last episode, and it's still technically still a Marvel show, so there's a lot of like Marvelish stuff that they have to do, like superhero stuff that they have to do. If this was a straight drama, and they talked and we got everything that we learned in this episode, it would be a lot to wrap up in one episode. If it was just like this is this guy, this is what happened to him, this is how he's struggling and why he's struggling, and in the next episode he got the aftermath of that, you would have a lot to tie up, but then you have all the other Moon Knight stuff that you have to tie up, and the bad guy stuff that you have to tie up. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this show. They basically did the thing that they did in the penultimate episode with Wanda, without getting into too much detail of the episode, spoiling the episode. It was very similar to the penultimate episode of Wanda. Honestly, the penultimate episode of Wanda was better than the finale. Hopefully that's not the case here. We'll see. We'll see. Even though it was better than the finale, I enjoyed WandaVision. So even if the final episode doesn't live up to this episode, I will say that unless they make some egregious choices, I really enjoyed this show, and I really am enjoying this show. So yeah. All right. Any other thoughts before we jump into the spoiler section?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to not talk about.
Yeah, there's some.
So we're should go right into it.
There are some big reveals in this episode. Yeah. And I have screenshots if we need them. So all right. So, if you're enjoying the conversation, please join the conversation by commenting down below, and like and subscribe to help us out. We really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into spoilers. All right, so where do you guys want to start? I mean, we could go in chronological order. We can go to the big reveal at the end, or we could go to what happens at the very end with Steven. Doesn't really matter to me.
I think.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Well, we can confirm in this. I got the confirmation I've been waiting for ever since the beginning, that Marc Spector is the real person. It's a real person of the whole of the whole Knight series, which is just exactly from the comic book. Well, a lot of people thinking that it was Steve Grant is the real one, but it's really confirmed. But we get to see the backstory of where this Stephen Grant came from and everything, or materialized in a way. But it's good to know. But it is a revelation. Well, it's not really. I mean, for those who don't know who Moon Knight is, at least they get to know that who is the real person that controlled the first place, which is Mark Spector.
Yeah.
And then we get the
we get that information, but we also, more importantly, understand why he was created, why he was, why that altar was created. So comics sometimes are written by people who are thoughtful, and sometimes are written by people who are writing on deadline. So I feel like when they added the multiple personality thing, it was kind of gimmicky in the comics. I don't know that they were nearly as thoughtful as the people in this show were, but they, taking that source material, decided to be very thoughtful about this. It consulted psychologists and psychiatrists about the disorder, and actually delve into people who actually have this disorder and what could actually create it, or what kind of trauma would actually create it. I don't think the trauma in the comic book is nearly as acute or specific as it is in the show, and I appreciate the care that they took with this disorder, because it's a real disorder that people suffer from, and being trivial about it would be irresponsible. So I also appreciate now, and after seeing this episode, you understand why they made the decisions that they made with Steven, why they changed him from a billionaire playboy, whatever. There's very specific reason why Steven is the way that he is, based upon the trauma that Mark was inflicted. It was the trauma that was that Mark endured and was inflicted upon him. So it wouldn't make sense that he would be a billionaire playboy. I guess if he was trying to really escape, but really it was he was just trying to escape from some trauma, and what he was pulling from his experiences. And as his experiences is like a 10-year-old, a billionaire playboy wouldn't be like in his unless he was trying to model himself after Batman, which apparently exists in the MCU, because we got a nod to him in the Eternals movie. But so I guess maybe if he was a Batman fan, maybe he would be, but he wouldn't really. It really wouldn't make any sense. So yeah, we get. I mean, do you want to talk about the trauma? Or do you want to talk just from the beginning?
Yeah, I think we can just go into it. I think it was really well done, because it is something that is done with care, and also it's something that is done where it is very traumatizing, and you can see as a 10-year-old, he was gravitating himself to a point where it is a hero. Like the hero that was on the poster was, I think, was like not Tomb Raider, not Tomb Hunter. Tomb Hunter. Yeah. So it was gravitating towards. So that's where the persona of Stephen Grant came from. And as a 10-year-old, he looked up. 10-year-old Mark Spector looked up to that, so that he can internalize the trauma of being beaten by his mother, where this personality then came out to kind of, again, hide the shame, hide all of it. And again, this all came from the fact of, and they did a very careful job of explaining, through action and through the process of why he was, why was his mother so abusive to him. And it was because of his younger brother, drowning in the cave. And things. So it was really, really well crafted, really well organized, to the point where you understand trauma that came.
You understand his trauma. You don't necessarily understand her, why she, like you. Right. Exactly. She's not made to be like a completely evil person, but she obviously has mental issues as well, and it's probably where he's probably inheriting some of her mental health issues. but yeah, there are a couple issues here. Not just his mother, but the neglectfulness of his father. Like like he said when he ran away when he was when he was a teenager. He's like, you should have done something about it. He should have done something about it. But right. I don't know if he was like trying to shield her because she was obviously grieving a child. But yeah, he was failed by both of his parents, not just the one that had a mental breakdown. His father was negligent in his duties as well as a parent. And again, you have to, if you're trying to be kind, I'm sure he was grieving his son as well. So maybe he didn't handle things as well as he could have. But yeah, it's interesting. And very complex and layered.
Right, very complex and later, and just the fact that you're dealing with a loss as well, and how does the three of them kind of react to that loss is very, very visceral and very real to any type of family that goes through loss, and how people would react in certain ways. And yes, you're right, Nathan, is that it's very layered and very complex. It's not just like, clean cut that his mother was the bad person, and Steven, not Steven, but Mark was the victim, and in a lot of ways he is the victim of this whole experience.
He was, and what she does is awful, but she's obviously, like I said, suffering from mental health issues as well. It's just two adults that failed this child. Two adults, to be fair, who suffered a terrible loss, and in that loss they failed their surviving child. This was the scene from the episode where Steven sees what Mark was hiding. Sees the bedroom, but he doesn't remember anything about the mother because this is also when you see him creating Steven. I think on the wall there's a poster of the Mythbuster thing.
Right, the Tombbuster.
Tombbuster.
On the left of
there it is right there.
Yeah, 10-year-old Mark. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Ronald died, it seems like this is a movie that they would watch over and over again because they were both pretending to be characters from the movie when they were exploring the cave. So I mean, they were children, and they just didn't know better. He's 10, his brother maybe is 8 or 6 or whatever. Her blaming him is inappropriate, but obviously she has issues. Here's the Tombbuster.
Like I said, it's very well done in that it's very layered, but also it answers the question as well as to he is using Steven as a way to kind of escape, but also to shield his mother from blame as well, because you keep now it makes sense, going back to the first and second episodes, he's calling his mother, saying, like, kind of checking in on her, saying what's going on and things like that. Now it makes a lot of sense as to why Steven felt the way that he felt about his mother, in a more kind of positive light, or just that type of
Mark was actively protecting Steven. He was only bringing Steven out during the sweet parts of his mother. So Steven remembers his mother, so he recognized his mother, but he was only activated, or he was only called upon by Mark when his mother was being sweet. So that's all he remembers. So Mark took all the abuse. So yeah. Right. And he spent, so there was a lot of conversation back and forth in the beginning of the season about who was protecting Steven, who was shielding him, and it seems that it was Mark the entire time. He was shielding that part of his mind because it's complex, right? Because this is the person this is the person who's supposed to care for you the most, no matter what, right?
Right.
So he wanted to, a part of his mind wanted to keep her as that person, as that person that he loved.
Absolutely.
So that's why he created Steven, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but like there's the scene later on where, and that child actor is pretty good, is really good. I mean, of course, Oscar Isaac is the star of this episode, but that child actor did an excellent job portraying little Mark, and also the switch when he went into kind of a fugue state and he created Steven. That Marvel has not always hired the best child actors, but that child actor was exceptional in that small part that he had there. But yeah, we see even adult Mark struggling in the same exact way, and for the same exact reason that Steven was created by Mark, and when his mother died, like in the middle of the street. In the middle of the street when he breaks down, you can sense the conflict in him, right? She beat him. She abused him. She treated him like he was the one who killed his brother, but it was his mother. So he also still loved her. He was so he was so torn and broken by the experience. Right. It's not stuff that you expect in a Marvel superhero show. It's really,
dude. Yeah, that's why I said in the non-spoiler part that this is very intense, because you're dealing with very, very complex issues and very sensitive issues. These are very sensitive issues when you're dealing with families, that are, or family members that are abusive, or dealing with trauma, childhood trauma that is very visceral, and you are the direct, in some ways, the direct cause of a family member dying. So it's like there are a lot of things that are there that, again, they did, the writers and also the director, he did a very excellent job of layering all these into very kind of complex, but doing it with sensitivity and care. And I think that's what I really appreciate a lot of, because you have to, these issues are not very easy to talk about, and so to have that was very, very important, throughout the episode, and to make sure that, again, it also reminded me, actually, I think, who was it that said it was not his fault? I think it was Steven.
It was Steven. So yeah, and Steven basically is him. It's a part of him that he's walled off. So it was him. Right. That also was. I mean, like, in that scene, this is why he should, like, if they are going to submit him for an Emmy, that is the scene that they have to submit for an Emmy, because at a certain point, you forget that it's the same guy acting both parts. So like you see him breaking down in the street, like you see the past event, him breaking down the street, as I mentioned, and then you see Steven seeing it for the first time, and he's seeing it, and he's taking this in, and he's trying to understand what's happening here. But the back and forth between Steven and Mark after what happens is beautiful, and you like I said, you stop thinking that it's two guys, and you just see them as two characters. And yeah, it's part of him. It's part of himself forgiving himself. He was a child. Right. It was not, I mean, you can say it was his fault, but you can't really say you can't really say a 10-year-old is responsible for a 6-year-old or 8-year-old. It's not his fault. They were still, they were both children.
And children explore.
Yeah.
Children explore, and they wander off. That's why we have adults to kind of say, look, you have to kind of keep a close eye. We all have nephews and nieces, and for the both of you, you have kids, so you care for them, you love them, and you don't want them to be in harm's way. So it's like, so you understand that as family members, you do understand that part of it, but it's very important. That scene actually reminded me a lot of the scene from Good Will Hunting,
Yeah. When he said
that was really touching, the scene there.
Yeah.
Really well done. Kind of very similar to it in terms of the tone was very similar. But yes, you're right, Nathan. Brilliantly acted by Oscar Isaac, definitely.
Yeah, you're right. It's exactly like Good Will Hunting, and it's saying it should. He's trying to explain to himself that he shouldn't have brought him to the cave, but again, he's 10.
Of course,
so it's beautiful for a couple reasons. You forget that they're two different characters. That it's the same actor because he's playing the two characters so well, but also thinking about what's happening to here psychologically. What's happening here psychologically is that part of his psyche is being tender with himself, and he's not been tender with himself for all of his life. He's always self-flagellated. His mother actually abused him, but he was also self-flagellating as well. So he's actually being kind to himself and saying that, hey, you were a child. I mean, you can see here, and it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And he believes that because it is part of him that is saying it to himself. Right. Like I said, it's complex and it's layered and it's beautiful. And a lot of this episode was just horrible and gut wrenching. But this is the one. This is the part that made me cry. The most, with just like catharsis of him getting that feeling that he's not to blame.
But who would have thought that Marvel would do something like this? This is really bold of Disney to like bring up these issues, bring up these complex issues, and allowing them to do that. I mean, we all talk about how Disney is, is a family, oriented and, happily ever after and stuff like this. Is not happily ever after.
No, but this is sometimes, I don't know. Disney has since the like 40s have been killing off parents, but
well, yeah, that's true too. I understand that. Yeah, that's true too. But but we're talking about kind of like a little bit more. It's a little bit more real in terms of the impact, I would say, than say like.
Bambi's mom dying.
An animated feature, like an animated feature of parents dying, like Mufasa, dying. Yes, it does hit you. Yes, it does. I'm not disputing that at all because I'm sure that young people were traumatized by that, and traumatized by a lot of other things, and other animated features of Disney. But this hits home in a different way, though. I would say.
Yeah, I mean it's the ugly part of families, and I mean they explore families, but this is some families are like this, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, it's this episode was a lot. Anyway, other things happen in the episode, but
there's other things besides this complex, drama that happens.
I mean, this is the most important thing that happened in the episode.
Exactly,
but other things happen in the episode as well. So the reason that they're going down memory lane is because they are dead, and they're in this construct. They're in the underworld, Duat, and we saw Taweret at the end of the last episode, and so she gives them the skinny on where they are or why they are there. Their hearts need to be weighed against the feather, which is very similar to the actual Egyptian myth. She's actually pretty good in this episode as well. She's funny and very, very, very likable. Let me see if I can find any scenes from her. There's a lot of screenshots here. Oh, also in his exploration of the past, so it goes from like the most not necessarily most superficial part, but like the stuff that he's willing to share, all the way up to the stuff that's very close to that he was shielding Steven from his entire life. So we actually first see him all the people that he killed. So we see this room,
yes,
and the cafeteria inside of the construct of the psych ward with all the people that he's killed. And at this point, it's funny because Steven really goes on a journey himself. Like at this point, he's disgusted with Marc because of all the killing that he's done, and he's not very far off from how he's felt for the entire season with who Marc is, but because of the life that Marc has crafted for Steven, he has a fair amount of empathy. So while he does not like what he's done here, he is able to actually feel empathy for him by the end of the episode, which is quite a journey for Steven, because Steven is processing all this, processing the fact that his mother's dead. And it's a completely different character. Like I said, Oscar Isaac is doing great work here.
When I played video games, when I was playing video games actually a while ago, this reminded me of one video game. I don't know if David, you probably know of this one. This was it's one of the Metal Gear games. So there was a scene where the main character had to go through like a river of like dead people, and so you had to revisit them, and then they will all come back and appear, and you had to try to re-kill them again in this like afterlife type of thing. So it reminded me a lot of that, and again brings up a lot of the supernatural stuff that Moon Knight is all that the Moon Knight series has been all about, dealing with the supernatural. So I'm very, very interested to kind of see where this type of thing goes forward in terms of moving forward with the other types of with the Midnight Suns group and stuff like that. I'd be very fascinated to also
they have Manwolf, or sorry, what's the
Werewolf by Night?
Werewolf by Night. They have like a Halloween special later this year, right? Or something
right.
Like yeah.
Right, exactly. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see that progression, because this is, I mean, we've seen a lot of it in the previous episodes as well, but this because I haven't been on the live streams, this kind of like I really saw this and I was like, whoa, we're getting really supernatural here, really, really cool stuff, and they're just kind of scratching the surface on that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else do we have here? I guess this is the scene where he's chasing after Rollo, and he's at the cookout. So this is where this is also the origin. This whole scene, you get origins of a lot of different things. It seems like in creating Steven, he pulled a lot of different references, right? Steven is a little bit his brother as well. Like his brother was the one who was drawing a fish with one fin, and Steven is a little bit Layla. Steven loves the things that Layla loves. So he pulls in creating Steven. Marc pulls a lot of things that he loves and puts it into Steven, because Steven is the place where he can keep things safe. The things that he loves safe, including the love for his mother, which he still has. It's like I said, complex and very, very beautiful, the way that they really thought this through, and they really consulted experts on this to craft this story.
Right. Do you have a scene that is when he was visiting Khonshu? That was later on, right? I do have actually a question about that.
Yeah,
if you're able to pull that up.
Later on.
Yeah, I can. Let me seek through the screenshots, because
I have a question about that. Just really.
What's the question while I search for it?
The question I have about that is more about the blood, because I was a little surprised that they showed that much blood on Marc when he was crawling to the statue of Khonshu. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of blood for a Disney Plus show. I don't
know. After last week, when they had all the people basically being gutted and embalmed in that.
That's true too.
It was no more blood than that. They had trails of blood, and Steven was like, I'm just saying what I'm seeing here, and there's like a trail of blood. I think we should go the other direction. Yeah, there was a lot of blood.
I'm kind of fascinated in the way of how they would how they would not make Moon Knight, like, because I know, but because they made the deal with Netflix, they have a lot of those Netflix shows that are now on Disney Plus, but of course you have that parental control that's there now. But this was not part of it, so I don't know where the line was, because I would say that more conservatively that would be, that's a lot of blood. Let's just say that. And I'm like, how much blood do you really need in order for it to be, considered as though it's?
I mean, I think they were trying to convey the fact that he was going to die, so he decided to kill himself. They probably should have had a trigger warning at the beginning for suicide, because it looks like he was about to.
Yes. Yes. He did. He had the gun like pointed at his chins. It's like, I'm like, that's pretty intense stuff. Like there could be like, not to say that I'm I'm scared that a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old would like, oh, let's see Moon Knight, and then like, oh my God, like I would think that parents would be a little bit more discreet about the fact that, oh, maybe it's not that appropriate to watch Moon Knight right now. Maybe for a teenager, okay, we can probably let it slide. But at the same time, I'm just like, oh, would I let a 6-year-old or 8-year-old watch this? Probably not.
No, but I mean, I think this is appropriate content for a teenager. But again, that's also the age for where you would want to have a warning at the front saying about suicide, and if you're feeling a certain way, because kids around that age don't understand, think the feelings that they have are going to last forever. So you really need to be careful about showing.
But also the scenes with abuse. I mean, I would say
abuse and the trauma, and there's also childhood trauma and loss at an early age.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that they don't do it with the Pixar movies, because there is a lot of loss in some of the Pixar movies that they do, but that's like animated, in some way.
That's animated, and they didn't actually show the abuse. They just implied it. But I mean, it's very clear what's happening to him. So it's not like, let me see. Here's the scenes with the Khonshu and the thing, because it was after the it was after they showed Mark leaving and telling his father that he should have done more. They go to the desert, and the massacre in the desert. There is a lot of blood here. Hold on, let me go forward a little bit. You see Layla's father there, in his scarab scarf,
right,
and then Khonshu's crypt, or his tomb rather. So there is a lot of blood here, but I don't know that it's more blood than you saw on like Tony Stark when he died.
That's true.
You think this is?
And also the battle between Captain America and Iron Man in Captain America Civil War, when they duke it out each other, Tony Stark was bloody as like no tomorrow.
There's a lot of blood, but because he dragged himself on the floor, so you can see a blood trail.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think this is more than like Tony had when he was burnt and bloody after he did the snap though.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I bring this up is because there's been these small controversies with Disney Plus, bringing in the Netflix shows. But I'm like, well, there's a lot of content that's on Disney Plus that you can readily see. Say Star Wars, heads get cut off, and arms get cut off and stuff like that. So it's like,
Anakin is basically a stump by the end of the
so it's like that's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now. You know, it's like that's not Disney Plus, so you can readily just see it there. So without any type of warnings or anything like that. So I mean, I don't. I am not the one to just say, oh, you know, families should not be watching Disney Plus or like canceling Disney Plus because of it. But at the same time, I'm just like, where is that? Where is that? I think as a curiosity for me is like, where is that? Where are the lines? You know, that type of thing. More so than just like, oh, I'm like one of those like fake outrage type of people.
I feel like that's mostly a cultural thing, though. So, like, I think that's an American cultural thing. I think for some reason Americans are more okay with showing their children violence because a PG-13 movie could have a lot of violence and even blood, and I think they get to say one curse word in a PG-13 movie, and this is really PG-13 content in the US, right? So there's always been a lot of violence in those kind of movies. There usually isn't gore. When you see gore, then it gets to rated R. So I think this is really still PG-13. And like I said, it's a cultural thing. In another country, I think you might have more content advisories. If this had sexual things in it, in another country, you wouldn't have those content advisories, but you would have those content advisories here in the U.S. because we're okay with violence, but sex we have issues with. So I think it's just culturally where they're showing it. I think if you were to try to pull this up maybe in France, they probably would have more advisories at the beginning of the show. Maybe, I don't know.
But do you think one last question I have about this is that do you think that they should have had something in front of this that I kind of say like viewer discretion or something like that?
I think they should have had something about the suicide stuff.
The suicide
thing. I think we've evolved as a society about being more sensitive about those things and things that are triggers for people. I haven't seen a show. I haven't seen a show in the last 5 years that had a scene that even alluded to suicide that didn't have an advisory at the beginning. So it was surprising that they didn't have that. I mean, it gives you spoilers, but when you're talking about this, it doesn't matter whether or not you get spoilers about which one.
Right.
It's more important that people have the support that they need. Like, they didn't have an advisory at the beginning. I didn't fast forward all the way to the end. I know there wasn't an after credit scene. There was an advisory at the end of the episode about suicide.
Not that I know of. I don't think I saw anything at the end. But I probably have to recheck to see if there was something. But that's what kind of surprised to me was that there was a lot of kind of heavy issues that were here that you should have some sort of warning, for viewers and things like that. Not even just sensitive viewers, just like viewers in general.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Like a viewer discretion advice, maybe, but like I said, I don't think that bothers me. Maybe because I'm desensitized because I was inculcated here in the U.S. It's more the suicide thing that
understood.
I'm looking at this. I have screenshots of even the credits. They didn't have an advisory at the end either. They just have we have the very end scene with Mark in the fields of reed, and then they cut to credits. But there's nothing. There's nothing before the credits. It's just the credits.
Right. I was thinking whether or not during the language, like the voice actor ones at the very, very end, whether there's something. I don't think that there was.
Yeah, but it would be, if they were going to add it, it would be irresponsible to add it all the way there because no one would see it. They need to put it at the very beginning, or they need to put it at the end of the episode, like when it turns to black right here. If you're going to do it at all, you need to put it in a place where people would actually see it. No one's sitting around, or very few people are sitting around watching who did the dubs in Hungary or Italy. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
yeah, it's a minor. I mean, it's not a minor. It's a nitpick, but it's like it's an important thing. They probably should have had an advisory,
Right.
since they
Right.
decided to do that. Um, but otherwise, this episode is exceptional, and
Mm-hmm.
we also hear at the end here, Steven, a part of himself. I mean, we say Steven is sacrificing himself, but really a part of himself sacrificed himself for Mark, and that's when the scales balance, and
Mm-hmm.
he gets to go to the fields of reeds. Do you think Steven is gone forever? He kind of people compared this to Anna in Frozen being frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Anna came back immediately. Do you think Steven's going to be back in the next
Right.
episode?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know
I mean,
whether or not that's going to be the case, or whether or not it's like you go through this type of journey already, where you're leaving a part of yourself behind, and you had to
yeah,
leave yourself.
he created
Yeah.
Steven for a specific
Right.
reason. Steven
Right.
Steven forgave him and also got him to see that he wasn't responsible. I think Steven is, I mean, he's satisfied his need for Mark, right? So like
Right.
this is part him going away because he's a good character would be a loss, but also it would show that Mark is actually healing, right? So
Right.
I'm of two minds about
Right.
it.
Right. I think it makes sense for the story for Steven to not come back, because you are completing you are basically, like you said, healing from the trauma of,
Hmm.
of your childhood. So do you really need him anymore? So, and then it will also, if he comes back, it will, I don't know if it will cheapen anything, or would he just be there as kind of like, what will be his role? That's the thing. Like,
I
what
think
will, or would it be, would it, or the other thing that they could do is probably, if there's another type of event that happens where Steven comes back, because that's what's happened in the first few episodes, is that his persona, the Steven persona, came in
mhm.
because it was almost like a protection,
Right.
for him. So maybe in the future that Mark will have some type of encounter that will propel him to again call on Steven to like return in some way to protect him.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a television show, and actually, I guess the other way that they can explain it is by being more realistic about it. I would assume without magical intervention, the path for healing for people that actually have this disorder isn't going to happen in a couple hours.
Mm,
It's gonna be a long term thing. So if the other alternate personalities dissolve into the main personality, it's something that's going to happen gradually over time. So
mm-hmm.
that's another thing that's another way that they can explain that if he's
I see.
resurrected. If he's resurrected, then Stephen will be resurrected as well. He's starting to come to terms with what happened to him as a child, but he still needs time to heal,
Right.
and fully believe himself when he says that it wasn't his fault. I can imagine that was definitely a breakthrough that he had,
Mm-hmm.
but he's lived with that trauma for so long that he needs to probably tell himself that a lot until he actually
Mm.
believes it. So
Now,
that's a
yeah.
way that they can explain why he still needs Steven.
Now, story wise, it would be if he was going to appear in another movie or something like that. I know that this is a limited series, so we're probably going to see Moon Knight, in the future,
Hmm.
whether or not it's going to still it's still just going to be Mark and Mark alone as the hero, or Steven will still be a part of him. That's, I mean, there's an argument to be made that it should be just Mark, because there is some type of closure that happens. that happened during this episode, and then it will be, story wise, it might be more convenient for them to just go with Mark, and then then you have other characters that might come in, like say for example, Midnight Suns, or or Werewolf by Night or something like that will come in, and then you don't have to deal with the Steven personas per se.
I mean,
so
but
that might be another type of line of thinking.
Yeah, but the Steven persona is just interesting to watch for like a television point of view. But like, and also like I said, it's more realistic that if he's going to go away, he goes away over time. Because they've been so careful about how they portray this disorder, to illustrate that you can just get over it in an afternoon would cheapen how careful they've been in exploring this topic.
Okay.
So I can see why they might bring him back. I can see why I can see them justifying bringing him back, to be as careful as they have been be just as careful as they were when they explained why he was created in the first place. They have to be just as careful if he's going to go away, that he doesn't go away in like a blip or from like supernatural reasons, like being frozen in sand. Especially if Mark is going to be resurrected, and we know Mark is going to be resurrected because if this was in a regular show, sure, maybe not, but like he has to come back to be the superhero to save the day in the next episode. So so he's going to be resurrected. In which case, Steven is probably going to be resurrected in some way or fashion as well. So we talked about Oscar Isaac most of this episode because it's mostly his episode, and probably what they're going to use for his Emmy nomination, for his consideration for his Emmy nomination. But Ethan Hawke was also very good in this episode. He playing a completely different character. So like this is the first time that this in the previous episode as well. Oscar has gotten the juicy acting ability to play two different characters. But Ethan Hawke has been basically playing the same character through this entire show, except for in these scenes, and he seems very empathetic. He seems like he's trying to talk to Steven in a very, very measured way, and a lot of what he's saying is making sense. And it's like even the thing was like, you're swinging from as a pendulum from sense to nonsense. I mean, you're creating a construct. I mean, all he was saying was making a lot of sense. I could understand what Mark was starting to believe it, because he knows that he's sick, right?
You know what this episode, this scene reminded me of. You both of you have watched DS9. You probably will know what I mean when he was in that what was it? Oh, when Cisco was in that thing with the Pares, and he was the writer. It was one of the episodes.
Yeah.
Reminded me of that very
much. Beyond the Stars, something Beyond the Stars.
Yeah, Beyond the Stars. Exactly.
Yeah.
Reminded me so much of that episode. It's like because like
far beyond the stars. Yeah.
So like Oscar Isaac's playing the Ben Sisko character, and then Ethan Hawke is playing the guy who's saying, oh, this is not real. Like he's trying to mess with his head basically. It was just very fascinating that it just reminded me of that DS9 episode way back when.
It's good stuff. I mean, like it's hard to top Oscar in this episode, but like the stuff that he's doing here is also very good, and I'm glad that they got Ethan Hawke. They were able to talk Ethan Hawke into playing this character, because they actually give him a fair amount to do here. So
yeah, exactly.
It was a good use of his talents. I don't know. Are we missing anything else in this episode? Because we jumped around a lot.
No, we pretty much covered it.
So Rolo Rollo drowning. We got the people that he killed. We got the bargain with Khonshu. Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah, Bargain Contra sounded very Batman, actually, to me. All he was saying was like very Batman. It was like, oh, I'm talking about that. Like, you can see the parallels to Batman, with Moon Knight and things like that. So it was kind of interesting to kind of hear Khonshu say that out loud, in a kind of a direct relationship with Batman in many ways.
yeah. The other thing that people have complained about is that we didn't get any Jake Lockley in this episode, and it was like, I didn't care because this episode was so great. They explain in very good detail why Steven was created. Now, if they take similar care explaining why he had to create another alternate, fine. But I think they needed this entire episode, since this entire season has been Marc and Steven, to explain Steven. If they hint at another character or another alternate personality, fine. But I don't think they're going to take an entire episode to do that, because they have a lot to wrap up. If they show anything about Jacob, which is the other alternate personality in the comic books, it'll probably be in like an after credit scene or something. In the next episode, because they have a lot of actual like season long plot stuff that they need to get to in the next episode. Plus, they need to resurrect Marc in the next episode.
Right. So, I think the resurrection is going to happen really quickly in the beginning, like the first 5 minutes, most likely.
Maybe
so that they can move it along,
Maybe, but they still have to explain how. So like, I don't think Taweret here, because she was just easing his path to the afterlife. I don't think she's going to resurrect him. She did talk to, when she was turning the boat around, she did say she was going to the gates of Osiris, so maybe Osiris will resurrect him.
Okay.
Now that Osiris has evidence, even I think he was very quick to dismiss the plea earlier in the season. I mean, they just because Marc had some mental issues, he was a little too easily swayed by Harrow. But yeah, Osiris might be the key to resurrecting Marc in the next episode.
One last thing that I have before we wrap, I think, is, do you think that there's going to be any cameos from either MCU or even like characters we haven't seen, that are hinted? Anything in the last episode or even the post credits?
I don't know that we're going to get cameos. There was a reference here by Taweret to the ancestral plane from Black Panther.
Yes,
but
caught that. That was
cool. But I don't know that we're going to get any cameos. This whole season has been fairly, not necessarily completely cordoned off from the MCU, because you do see some. There were some ads in the background on like buses for the GRC, which is the organization that shows up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and like I said, Taweret makes this the reference right here to the Black Panther's afterlife. Or Bast, the afterlife that Bast creates for the Wakandans. But I don't know. I don't know who would be. I mean, if they're going to do horror stuff, maybe there's a after credit scene that hints at Werewolf by Night, or maybe there's something that hints at the Dane Whitman Blade stuff, because Oscar Isaac did not sign up for anything past this. I think if it does well, if he gets an Emmy nomination, he'll definitely come back. But he didn't sign up for anything after this, so I don't know if they would put a tag at the end of this that has him in it. So it would have to be a tag for something else.
Okay,
but I don't know.
Well, I mean, with all the, next week is actually going to be, when the last episode comes out, it's going to be 2 days before Doctor Strange comes out, so they're probably going to save all that for Doctor Strange, probably.
2 days or a day, because there'd probably be some Thursday viewings of Doctor Strange.
Oh, that's true too.
So like, yeah. I don't know if they're going to have any. I don't know. Like last year, they had the final episode of Hawkeye coincide with the release of Spider-Man. And you saw that it kind of happened at the same time. Like it happened in December, and by the time we got to the end of Spider-Man, it was December. So maybe they'll synchronize things in that way. I don't know. I guess we shall see. I mean, this stuff definitely could feed into each other because like we're talking about supernatural stuff. We're talking about magic. We're talking about magic stuff, in some regard, and that's what Doctor Strange is about, right? So, so maybe, yeah. All right. Anything else before we wrap up, guys? I think we. For me. All right. Well. That is what we think, but we are interested to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below to join the conversation. Like and subscribe to get more content like this. And we will see you next week when we talk about the last episode of Moon Knight.